So the big tax question is this: how do wealthy people keep their money working for them when selling their business, real estate, or other highly appreciated assets without paying hundreds of thousands to millions of dollars in tax? What if we, as business and real estate owners who have poured blood, sweat, and tears to growing our wealth, and who didn't hire expensive tax attorneys and CPAs to map out an exit strategy, knew their secrets? Instead of recreating the wheel, why can't we just model the way they deferred 30 to 50% in tax, paid off debt, funded their next business dream, and most importantly, leave a financial legacy to give to the causes we believe in most? What if their secrets weren't complicated at all, and you just need a guide who is a few steps ahead of you? That is the question, and this podcast will give you the answers. My name is Brett Swarts, and welcome to Capital Gains Tax Solutions. Welcome to the Build It to Billions podcast, where we guide successful entrepreneurs and investors on their journey from millions to billions. We believe the key to scaling and compounding your wealth and life starts every single day with the mindset and practice of stewardship over ownership and applying billionaire biblical principles. Our ultimate goal is to have you scale, compound your wealth and life so you can give more all of it away to help MVPs. My name is Brett Swarts. Each and every episode, we're joined by some of the world's top millionaires, billionaires, and entrepreneurs where they share their secrets with us so we can level up right now. And I'm excited about our next guest. He is out of the state of Ohio, and he is recognized as one of the most requested in-demand business and motivational keynote speakers and executive coaches in the world. He is the only author in history to have works published by Hay House, HarperCollins, Simon and I think it's Sculptor, Mid-Valley, Nightingale, Continent, and the Chicken Soup for the Soul publisher. He has also delivered over 1,000 presentations for corporations, associations, business groups, colleges, universities, and youth organizations worldwide. And so much more. Please welcome to the show with me, Dr. Noah St. John. Dr. Noah, how are you doing?
I'm great, Brett. Happy to be here today.
Excellent. And for those who are also listening, we're also streaming on Capital Gains Tax Solutions and YouTube channels as well. So Dr. Noah, for our listeners, get to know you for the first time before we dive into the topic at hand, which is power habits for real estate professionals, but it can also apply, I imagine, to entrepreneurs and business owners, of course. I'm curious, who was Dr. Noah St. John growing up, and give us a little more about your focus today.
Absolutely. You know, I came to this, I've been doing this, helping people for over 30 years now. But it started very organically. I grew up poor in a rich neighborhood. And I know that's a total cliche, but it's true. I grew up in this little town called Kennebunkport, Maine, which is one of the wealthiest communities in New England. But my family was dirt poor. And I mean that literally, because we lived at the bottom of a dirt road in a drafty, unfinished house that my parents ended up losing to foreclosure when I was just 15 years old. So growing up, I was painfully exposed to the gap, the chasm between the haves and the have-nots. The haves was everyone else in the community, and the have-nots was my family. And so I just hated being poor. I hated that life of poverty because I saw that right down the street, there's great wealth and abundance. So I said, how the heck do I get from here to there? And of course, there was no one to help me back then. There was no internet or all the things we have today. So I did the only thing I could think of, which is I went to the library and I read every book in the self-help section. I read over 300 books in self-help, success, all the classics, Dale Carnegie, Napoleon Hill, Stephen Covey. Read every book that they had, and I really, really tried to apply it. But as hard as I worked, as hard as I tried, I just couldn't seem to get it to work. So at the age of 25, I actually decided to commit suicide. I decided to take my own life at age 25 because of how frustrated I was. Now, at the last moment, my life was spared, but I didn't know why, and I didn't know what I was doing here on this earth. So I said, I've got to find out, what is my purpose here? What am I doing on this planet? And what am I supposed to do with the rest of my life? So I went back to the library, and this time I read every book in the spiritual section to find out, what is my purpose? How do I find who I am and what I'm supposed to be doing here? So fast forward 5 years later, in 1997, I had these epiphanies, and I realized exactly what was missing in all those books that I'd spent so many years reading, and no one was talking about it. So I realized, aha, this is, in fact, my purpose and my mission, as well as my message. And so I decided to write my first book, which was called Permission to Succeed. It was subsequently published by the Chicken Soup for the Soul publisher. And now, all these years later, as you mentioned a moment ago, I'm the only author in history that's had works published by Hay House, HarperCollins, Simon & Schuster, Mindvalley, Nightingale Conant, and the Chicken Soup for the Soul publisher. No other author in history has ever done that. So really, even more exciting than that is that we've helped our clients real estate professionals, health professionals, entrepreneurs of all kinds from all around the world, over 120 countries, to add over $3 billion collectively. And that means we've helped entrepreneurs and real estate professionals to add 6 figures, 7 figures, and even 8 figures in record time using my system. And so that's who I am, and that's why I'm here.
Absolutely amazing, Dr. Noah St. John. Incredible story from wooden spoon to silver spoon, and from despair to hope and purpose. Incredible. Curious. We're going to be talking about power habits today, but before you go there, I believe we've all been given certain gifts in these lives, and these gifts have been given to us to be a blessing, help to others. Some people call them superpowers, and they're God-given gifts. I'm curious, what are those 1 or 2 gifts you believe you're given, and how does that help you bless people today?
That's a great question. And I think I have 2 main superpowers. One is the ability to assimilate and simplify. And what I mean by that is, as I mentioned, reading over 300 success books and many, many more than that now, but, so many books. And what I was able to do with now my system called the Power Habits System, and specifically Power Habits for real estate professionals, I'm able to synthesize that and simplify. And so many people come to me after they've spent tons of money on all the different gurus and seminars and everything, and they're still, hitting that income ceiling, as I call it. And then after getting coaching from me, whether it's one-on-one coaching or group coaching, they really are able to, as we like to call it, get that hockey stick growth, kind of going along like this. And then they put my magic in there, and then whoop, they just go through the roof. And I have literally thousands of case studies and success stories like that on our website. So really that's probably my main superpower, is the ability to synthesize and simplify so that anybody can do it.
Perfect. Now, with that being in mind, that secret in mind, that power in mind, walk us through the number 1 secret to creating power habits for real estate professionals, but really for any entrepreneur or business owner or such, or financial advisor. What's the number 1 secret to a power habit?
Well, what's really fascinating is that we have to back up a little bit before I answer that in a specific way, because what I want people to realize is many, many people listening to this program and watching, I'm sure, have had lots of training on habits. It's a very, very common thing, right? We hear about Atomic Habits, the 7 habits of highly effective people. So habits is everywhere, and many people are studying this topic, which as well they should, right? The problem is this, and this is coming from me, who has been studying this for many, many decades and help people making billions of dollars. What I realized is that most of that training that's out there in terms of habits is at the conscious level. And what I mean by that is, let's say you're taking habits training and it's saying, okay, you need to get motivated. All right, you need to have willpower. All right, you need to set your goals and you need to focus. All of those things are great. They're all wonderful. But guess what? We already know all that stuff. We've heard that a million times. So why isn't everybody doing it? And it's because of what I teach and what makes my teaching different. It's because what I teach is on the subconscious level. All right, so I'm sure most people listening to this program are familiar with the iceberg principle of human behavior, right? So the iceberg principle, very simply, is that you have the 5% of human behavior, thoughts, behaviors, and actions that are on the conscious level. About 5%. It's like the tip of the iceberg, right? The part above the surface that you can see. That's our conscious habits. Well, guess what? The vast 95% is below the surface. That's the subconscious, right? So just like the bottom part of the iceberg. And as I always tell my coaching clients, or as a keynote speaker when I'm doing keynote presentations, what I always show my audience members is, it wasn't the part of the iceberg that they could see that sunk the Titanic. It's the part they didn't see that sunk the Titanic. And that's what's sinking most people. And why is that? Because you can know all of these things. Hey, no, I know I need to get focused. I know I need to set my goals. I know I need to be positive. Great. So how come you're sitting there watching Netflix and not doing what you know you're supposed to be doing? Because of what I've been teaching people for 30 years. It's in the subconscious, okay? So that's one of the things that makes my power habit system different. We're not talking about conscious habits. I'm not saying they're wrong. I'm not saying you shouldn't be positive or you shouldn't set your goals. No, but you're focusing on the 5%, the tiny little bit that you can see, and you're completely ignoring the 95%. Not that you want to, but just nobody told you before. So think about it another way. Imagine if you're going into battle. You're going into battle, right? and you've got 5 guys fighting 95 guys. Who do you think's going to win the battle?
The 95 guys.
95, but only every time. So if you're okay with failing, if you're okay with being stuck, then keep doing what you're doing. If you'd like to do something different, then you might want to try my power habit system.
Got it. Okay. So we've established that's the problem. It's conscious versus subconscious. And most people are focused on the 5% versus the 95, the iceberg principle. So what is the number one secret to building subconscious habits?
The first thing we need to do is understand the cost. Okay? Everything that we humans do is on a balance, right? We're always constantly, continually weighing the cost versus the benefit, pros and cons, however you want to say that. I call it the why to's versus the why not to's. So the thing that is holding most people back are exactly what I just said, these subconscious habits. Another way I like to say that is what I call your head trash. Your head trash. So this is where we start. With my coaching clients, whether it's one-on-one, whether it's group coaching, in my events, we start with your head trash. Why? What is your head trash? Your head trash is the voice in your head that says, I can't do it because. So the very first power habit is to understand the cost of your head trash. Now, what do I mean? Let me give you a perfect example of this. I was talking with one of my clients. His name's Charles. And I said, Charles, now he'd been reading my books. He got my programs, been watching my videos on YouTube and, understanding my programs. So he called me and he said, no, I really need your help. I said, okay, what's going on? And he said, well, I own this company. We're doing well, but we keep hitting that income ceiling that you talk about. I said, okay, no problem. Very common. No worries. I can help you there. So I said, Charles, how much do you think your head trash is costing you right now? He said, because he told me, okay, I've been studying you. I understand this whole concept of head trash. So I asked him, just point blank, how much do you think your head trash is costing you? Without batting an eye, he said $1 million. He said, Noah, if I don't take out this head trash like you teach, it's easily going to cost me $1 million in the next 12 months. And I said, Charles, it's very common. Don't worry about it. First of all, I talk to people every day who tell me, Noah, my head trash is costing me $1 million, $2 million or more every year. And remember, that's a thing that adds up over time. It's not just 1 year. It keeps compounding in a bad way, meaning you're losing that money, not gaining it, you're losing it. So that's point number one. I said, point number two, I said, Charles, I tell you what, why don't you just give me 10% of that million and I'll find you $1 million in the next 12 months. In other words, if you give me $1 and I give you $10 back, is that a good deal? He goes, yeah, that's a good deal.
It's a great deal.
Exactly, right? We'd do that all day, wouldn't we? Yeah, we'd all do that every day. So he decided to do that. He said, yep, no, let's do it. So he literally paid me $100K, that's 10% of $1 million, right? To coach him one-on-one for a year. So I coached him one-on-one. Now, as it turns out, I didn't find him $1 million in the next 12 months. Instead, I found him $1.8 million in just 10 months. So he gave me $1 and I gave him $18 back. Is that a good deal? No, that's a great deal.
That's a great deal.
And he actually, and guess what? He even sent me an email. He said, Noah, guess where I am? I'm on a 7-week vacation with my wife. He said, this is a dream I've had for years. For the last 20 years, I wanted to buy an RV and spend, weeks traveling the country with my wife, but I didn't have the time or the money. He said, now because of your coaching, I've got more time than ever and I'm making more money than ever. So we're on a 7-week vacation. We're traveling the country. He literally said, Noah, thank you for changing my life. So that's the very first thing that we do. Number one is understand what is your head trash costing you right now. By the way, if you don't know, and most people are like, well, I don't know. How am I supposed to know? I actually invented a custom GPT to help you with this. All right, so you can go to, and this is easy to remember, freegiftfromnoah.com. Easy to remember. It's a free gift from Noah.com. And so it's what I call it. It's the $1 million business gap finder. So most people, I'm sure listening to this program, are used to working with ChatGPT. So you literally just put in your email address. It's a free custom GPT that you just answer a few questions, and it will actually walk you through the process of where is the gap between where you are right now and where you want to be, like Charles, to help him find that extra 1.8 million in less than a year. So freegiftfromnoah.com. It's a free gift from Noah. Easy.
Perfect. By the way, we're speaking with Dr. Noah St. John, everybody. And if you want to find him, you can go to that website. Also, you can go to noahstjohn.com, noahstjohn.com, unlock the formula to make success automatic. Okay, so yes, I'm loving it. And by the way, I call that truly passive income is what your client was looking for, right? I call it no shoes, no shirt, no problem. Truly passive income is to your freedom and impact. His compounding interest is to your money. and you're Kenny Chesney sitting on the RV beach playing your guitar with your wife or your significant other, and the money is just flowing in consistently, durably, and you can sleep well at night, and you've achieved that fourth quadrant of what Robert Kiyosaki talks about, and when your money is just completely working for you. But most don't reach that, right? Most stay within those other three quadrants.
That's right.
And that's the challenge, right? That we're up against. Okay, so let's keep digging on this. All right, so cost benefit, head trash. What's the next secret to establishing the power habits?
So the next secret is, okay, so once you have established like how much it's costing you, so most people, let's say they want to go from 10K a month, 10,000 a month to 100,000 a month. You know, maybe that's the gap for you. I'm at 10K a month and I want to get to 100K a month. Boom, that's the gap. Okay, so next we have to understand, what is your actual head trash? Like, what is that? So, and remember that custom GPT will help you with that. And of course, you know, I talk about that in my courses and my coaching. But for example, a lot of people believe that if I become way more successful, like 10X, 10K to 100K, if I 10X my success, I'm not going to have any time. I won't have any time, right? And so that's an example of head trash. In fact, you might even be saying, well, this all sounds great, Noah, but I don't have time to do that right now. I don't even have time today, you know, let alone when I'm making 10 times more. Forget it. I don't have any time. Okay, so do you see what you just did? What you just did, if you're saying that, if that's your head trash, that's just an example. But if that's what you're saying, then you're going to make it true. See, what so many people say is, Noah, I don't have time right now. Meanwhile, I come in there and I can show you where you are wasting 1 to 3 hours per day on useless things that aren't getting you where you want to go. So that's an example of what most people would call procrastination, right? So procrastination is something we all know about, and many people do. They're really good at it. They're practicing and they're very good. The problem is that everybody out there is saying, hey, you know what the solution is to stop procrastinating? Don't procrastinate anymore. Wow, thanks. That's really helpful. Yeah, never thought of that one. You know, it's like saying if you want to make more money, go ahead. Really? Okay. You remember that? You're probably too young to remember this, but there was a great Steve Martin joke back in the day, Steve Martin, the comedian. Yeah. And he would say, here's the secret to make $1 million and not pay taxes. Ready? First, make $1 million. Then don't pay your taxes. Okay, thank you. That was so helpful. Anyway, there's a lot of people doing stuff like that still today and not being a joke about
good.
it.
I love it.
But anyway, so my point being is, let's go back to your head trash, right? So what is your specific trash? In other words, what are you telling yourself? I'll give you another perfect example. I was speaking at an event in Los Angeles for 1,000 entrepreneurs, right? These are high-level people, 7- and 8-figure earners. I just finished my presentation. I was walking off the stage, and a man came up to me, and he said, Noah, I want to hire you as my coach. You are the coach I've been looking for. Now, I didn't know this man from Adam. Ironically, his name was Adam. True story. You can see his video right on my website and many others. But anyway, I said, okay, well, what's going on? He goes, well, Noah, you know, I own this company and we're at 7 figures in revenue. I said, okay, so what's the problem? He goes, we've been stuck here for the past 4 years. He said, 4 years, we have had no growth. We've just been stagnant. Yeah, we're making money, but we can't grow. We can't go through that income ceiling that you keep talking about. And so he said, as soon as I heard you speak about head trash and foot on the brake and income ceiling and everything you just said, he said, I knew you were the coach that I've been looking for. Oh, and by the way, he said, I've spent so much money. He said, I've thrown tons of money at this problem, hired every marketing guru out there, but, you know, we're still stuck. So he said, that's why I want to hire you. So he literally hired me on the spot. That's why I love working with high achievers, right? They don't dilly-dally, don't mess around. Let's do it. They don't mess around, right? They make decisions quickly and firmly. So I said, okay, let's do it. So I coached him and his leadership team for 18 months. In that 18 months, because of my power habit system, we were able to get his company that had been stuck at 7 figures for the previous 4 years to over 20 million. That's a 600% increase. Most CEOs would be thrilled with a 10% increase year over year. Try 600%. Remember I was talking about hockey stick? Whoop, through the roof. And what's amazing about that is we didn't know before we started where his head trash was. It was only as a result of going through the process that we were able to, number one, uncover it, and then of course take out the trash that had been really suffocating his growth. So that's another great example of how powerful these power habits really are.
Okay, everybody, drnoahstjohn.com. You can find Dr. Noah here and check out his stuff. Okay, so let's keep going, but this is good. This is good. I mean, head trash, power habits, taking out the trash, right? So many business owners, real estate pros, they're overwhelmed with hustle and burnout. So I guess practically speaking, how does your system help them grow without just hustling and grinding more and more and more? What practical steps can they take?
Yes, absolutely. That is such a great point. I'm so glad you brought that up, because one of the things that really bothers me about social media and everything today is the people who are taking up so much of the air in the room are the hustle bros, right? They're guys that saying you got to hustle your face off. You got to work 18, 19, 20 hours a day, until you're dead. And I'm like, yeah, that sounds great. Wow. Thanks a lot, buddy. I'm literally like, what are you and why? Why are you doing this? To me, I started my business not so that I could be chained to my business. I started my business so I could have a freedom lifestyle. Just take the kids to Disney World whenever we want to go on a whim because I feel like it. Go to Florida, go to Hawaii because we want to. And I would assume that most people would agree with that. Most business owners, most real estate professionals. You didn't get into it to be chained to your desk and chained to your business, literally. And so the point is that one of the things that we really work on with our clients, whether it's one-on-one like Charles and Adam like talking about, but also we have a program called the 12-Week Breakthrough, because I'm known for helping people make more in just 12 weeks than they did in the previous 12 months while actually winning their lives back. And one of the things that we look at in the 12-Week Breakthrough and in all of our coaching is what I like to call inner game and outer game. Okay, so if you think about a Venn diagram, and I'm such a nerd, I love Venn diagrams, I use them everywhere. This is my favorite Venn diagram of all time. It's just two circles that go together, right? So on the one hand, you have inner game, and on the other hand, you have outer game. Now, what does that mean? Well, inner game is everything that happens between your ears that you can't see directly, but it affects everything that you do. Right. So one of the things that I like to ask my audience members as a keynote speaker, whether it's live or virtually when I'm speaking to teams or organizations around the country and around the world, is I like to say to my audience members, okay, now what's one area of your life where your beliefs don't affect you? And here's what people do. They go, and I go, exactly. There's no place your beliefs don't affect you. Right? Your beliefs affect your health, your peace of mind, your stress level. Your beliefs affect your wealth, your money, your income, right? Whether you own your own business or you work for someone else. I mean, whether you get that promotion or not, whether you land that client or not, and all of that, that's your beliefs affecting all of that. Your relationships, your beliefs affect all of your relationships, your family life, your social life, everything else. There's no place your beliefs don't affect you. But here's the funny thing. You can't see a belief. You can only see the effects of a belief, right? That's why you can be doing really well in one area of your life, but maybe you're stuck or struggling in another. For example, maybe your health is really good, but you're not making the money you want. Or conversely, maybe you're making great money, but your health and your relationships are suffering, right? Let's face it, there's a lot of miserable millionaires out there. There's a lot of lonely millionaires out there. You don't want to be any of that, right? You want to be a happy millionaire who's living a freedom lifestyle. So that's your inner game. And then we also have your outer game. Right? Your outer game is everything you can see directly. So that's the marketing, the sales, the customer service, all the public facing things that you've probably spent a lot of time, money, and effort on. Right? So, but here's the problem. And this is exactly what we work on. We start right here in my programs, whether it's one-on-one or the group coaching. We start with the intersection of inner game and outer game. And we literally say, okay, how much time, money, and effort have you spent on one versus the other? Like Adam I just talked about, he spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on his outer game. And look, it got him to he got to 7 figures. Great. Okay, but what if we want to go further than that? Well, nobody had shown him how to master his inner game, and that's what caused the hockey stick growth. I'll give you another perfect example. I had another client named Tamisa. She's a real estate professional in Arizona. Now, she is at what she called a self-described seminar junkie. She was going to all these real estate seminars and she was doing well in her business, doing six figures, doing fine. But she couldn't break through that income ceiling, right? No matter how many seminars, how positive thinking she was. So she joined my 12-week breakthrough, the group coaching program. And in 2 weeks, she tripled her investment. In 2 weeks, tripled her investment. Talk about an ROI. We hadn't even gotten to the money part yet. We were only looking at her inner game, and she tripled in just 2 weeks. So that's a pretty nice ROI for anybody. So that's another great example of when you look at inner game and outer game. So everybody listening to this program can literally ask yourself right now, let's see, I spent how much money on outer game? Probably a lot. Okay, that's right. I'm not saying you don't need it. Of course you need the outer game, but it's exactly like if you built your house and you forgot to put the electricity in. Oops. Man, it's cold in here in the winter and it's awfully hot in the summer. What's going on here? Yeah, you forgot one little thing. Because isn't it funny? You can't see electricity. Can't see it, but you can see when it's not there, right? You're like, why is this light not working? That's weird. Oh yeah, we forgot. Okay, so that's what inner game really is. It's the electricity in your brain that, if I'm not going to say it's missing, but if you haven't wired it up correctly, so that's what we do. We literally rewire your brain for that hockey stick.
I have a couple thoughts on this. So like, yeah, it's like Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, LeBron James, like elite coach, and I think it's Dan Grover, right? And Dwayne Wade, and he talks about the times when they were either struggling or in a slump or something, and he'd come and do his gift, right? Which I think what you're talking about here, the inner game, right?
That's right.
And so what is that? Like next step, once you've identified the head trash, you've identified, obviously you need to work on the inner game. And so you start working on it. Walk us through what it looks like, Dr. St. John, to get to that subconscious inner game workout in.
Yeah, absolutely. So when you look at my books like Power Habits, for example, like I walk you through the whole process. It's right here. There's 11 total power habits, which is right here. I'm just going to hold this up for the folks watching. There it is right there. So there's 11 total power habits that you need to master. And remember, one of the things that I mentioned a moment ago is that these habits are in the subconscious, which means that highly successful people, like Michael Jordan is a great example. He is doing all of these things, but he could never tell you that he's doing them or what he actually did because he's unconscious. See, so what I realize is that these highly successful people that we all look up to are doing all of my power habits, but they're doing them unconsciously, meaning you could interview them all day and they would never even tell you because they don't know they're doing it. So it's an unconscious power habit. That's why, going back to my point I made a moment ago, that when you study the conscious habits of highly successful people, that's great. Oh, set your goals, think positive, visualize it. Nothing wrong there. But you're still fighting 95 guys with 5 guys. Good luck. Good luck. Not going to happen. Okay. So a great example of a power habit that you can start right now today is to understand not only what it's costing you to keep this head trash, which I talked about a moment ago, right? In other words, really write down, like Charles did. This is costing me $1 million this year. Okay, that's a pretty big cost, right? So then you have to understand, well, how much longer am I going to pay that? See, what we're talking about here is like the caveman survival instinct. That's what our subconscious brain really is, right? So our subconscious brain is really a lot about caveman survival, fight or flight, fear, right? So why do you think when we go on social media, why do you think everybody gets all riled up? Because the people who are doing those, who are really good at those algorithms, are pressing those caveman buttons in all of us. They're pressing the caveman button. Be careful about this. Watch out for that. Scare, fear, fear. Because what they're doing, and it's called the amygdala, is the part of the brain that is that fight or flight. So it's a tiny little, like about the size of a walnut in your brain back here. And it just, so that's why, oh my God. So one of the habits you can start right now is to stop doom scrolling, for God's sakes. Stop doom scrolling. There's nothing good that's going to happen from that. So I want you to, for everyone listening, one of the things where we start in our coaching is get very clear on what it is that you want. Now, everybody talks about that, right? Everybody says, oh, get clear on what you want. Okay, I've heard that a million times. No kidding. But then I want you to ask yourself, what is going to be the cost if you actually do that? What's going to be the cost to you if you actually accomplish what you just said you wanted? Right? In other words, wait a minute. I'm actually holding myself back for a specific reason. What is that reason? I wonder why I'm holding myself back. Maybe it's because, as I talked about a moment ago, well, it's going to take too much time. Oh, it's too expensive. I can't afford it. Right? I don't have the time right now. I don't have the money. I don't have the resources. I don't have the right friends. What if my friends don't like me anymore when I become really successful? What if my family's jealous of me? Do you see all these things that are happening in the subconscious mind? So one of the things you could do is just list those things and go, wow, I never even realized why I was holding myself back. So once you start to list those out, then working with me, or reading my books or my coaching, you can just go through and actually look at each one and go, is that real? Or is that something that came from my survival caveman brain? My survival caveman brain, that is its job, is to keep you not dead. That's its job. Make sure you're not dead. What's a great way to be not dead? Don't go towards anything you're afraid of. Right? Because the caveman would say, okay, that's a saber-toothed tiger. That's a woolly mastodon. That's a pterodactyl, which is not right because pterodactyls didn't live with caveman. But anyway, you get the point. Right? And it's like, if I go towards them, they might eat me and I'm going to die. So don't do that. Smart advice from that caveman. The problem is there's no saber-toothed tigers around anymore. And we're still acting like there is. You see what I mean? So
I do. This is so great. Okay. So it's inner voice audit, right? And then is it real? And then figure out like what's holding myself back, right? What story am I telling myself? What are these things? What are these things that he says working on the inner game, right? Okay. Excellent. And then can we keep going? Because this is too good. So
okay, so it really comes down to three main problems and three solutions. Okay. So the three main problems that I've been fixing for 30 years, the first one is called a lack of focus. A lack of focus. That means I'm really having trouble knowing what I want. Number two is a lack of direction. That means I don't know where I should be going or what I should be doing or who I can trust. And number three is isolation and overwhelm. All right. So those three problems, lack of direction, lack of focus, isolation, overwhelm, that is plaguing 99% of entrepreneurs right now. So how do we fix those problems? Well, we fix the problem of lack of direction by giving you the right plan, like a blueprint for the house, like I was talking about earlier. We want to make sure we include the electricity, right? Don't forget that. So we need a smart and a strong plan. The second thing is we need the right tools. If you're going to build a house, you need tools, right? So a plan, because building a business is a lot like building a house, isn't it? There's a lot of elements to it. That's why I love working with real estate professionals. That's why real estate professionals have made hundreds of millions of dollars from my coaching for that precise reason. The right plan, the right tools, and then the right support is the third solution. You must have the right support. So we've all heard it said that you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. We know that. And that really is true. It is very true. Like, go back to my example. I told you I grew up poor in a rich neighborhood. So in my family life was poverty. But in my community was wealth. So I was like, I could have decided to stay with my family and stay poor. And I chose not to do that because I noticed that while money isn't the most important thing, it's right up there with oxygen. It's pretty good. It's nice to have. As the great philosopher David Lee Roth said, money may not be able to buy happiness, but it can buy a yacht so you can pull right up next to it.
That's good.
Anyway, so money, yeah, it's a good thing. So right plan, right tools, right support. So one of the things you can do right now today is write down who are the 5 people you spend the most time with. A, B, C, D, E. Ooh, do you have an energy vampire in there? Many of us have an energy, 1 or 2 energy vampires in there. Ooh. And guess what, friends? Very, very often that's a family member. Dun, dun, dun. I know. I hate to call these things out, but that's my job. So very, very often it's a family member. So you're going to have to make some tough calls. What are you willing to do? I chose to leave my family when I was 15 years old for that precise reason. I didn't know all this stuff I'm telling you now, Of course I didn't. I just had a feeling, a gut feeling that says, I hate being poor. If I stay here, I'm going to stay poor. I got to leave. So I'm not saying you have to do something that drastic, but I'm saying, okay, who are the energy vampires in your life? And then how can you, if you can't remove them, at least limit them? At least limit your exposure to those energy vampires, because they are exactly what I'm saying. They're vampires. They're going to suck the energy, the life out of you. This is something that all of you listening can do right now today. Well, everything I'm telling you can do right now today. So if I'm giving you all this stuff for free, imagine what's in my classes. Imagine what's in my coaching. Yeah, you're right. It's amazing. You're right.
It is amazing. And by the way, you need to get action. I've already got I got his chat GPT. I was already downloading or
Accessing
on the button. Yeah, accessing it here. $1 million business gap finder. Go to the website that Noah's going to share with you here in a second, and get that going there. And we are completely out of time, Mr. Dr. Noah St. John, but I'd like to do a quick lightning round. You ready?
Yeah, go.
All right, knowing what you know now, if you could go back to your 20-year-old self, what's the one golden nugget make sure you tell yourself to do?
Marketing, marketing, marketing. Everything is marketing. I didn't know what marketing was till I was about 35 years old. I'm like, I didn't get it. So, man, that would have been nice.
Nice. Question number 2, number 1 book you've recommended or gifted the most in the past year. And of course, it could be your book too.
Well, if it's not my book, it would be The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey. That's the reason that I got in this business. He was my inspiration. And if it's one of my books, Power Habits is definitely where you want to start. You go to powerhabitsbook.com.
Perfect. Question number 3. What are you most curious about right now?
AI. AI is absolutely, no question, the cutting edge. And I mean, I've been online since 1997. My company has been around for 30 years now. And I remember being there at the very beginning. And I'm like, this AI revolution is exactly like being at the beginning of the .com revolution, only this is probably 10 times bigger.
It's incredible, right? Which, by the way, it leads me to a little bit of the question on the $1 million business gap finder. So you built your own agent here, and you basically told it, what you wanted to do, how you wanted to walk through, and you fed it enough information where it became its own.
Yes.
Any other tips on building agents?
Oh, well, I mean, this is actually a custom GPT. It's not actually an
custom
agent.
GPT. Okay, what's the difference? I don't really know the difference. Yeah.
A custom GPT is a process whereby anybody can input whatever data they want or information. So with my $1 million business gap finder, you just answer some questions. It'll walk you through the prompts. An agent, an AI agent, is a process that does something on a long, I don't want to say long period of time, but it's a certain way of doing a workflow. So in other words, AI agents are replacing humans. Sorry to say, but in many cases they are. For example, customer service. I was reading that it was either Apple or Google just laid off about 30% of their customer service agents because it's all being done by AI now. So that would be an example of an AI agent. So my custom GPT is frankly much simpler for anybody to do, so anybody can use it.
Got it. Next one, number 1 leadership quote or theme that you strive to live by.
Clarity is power. Clarity is power. If you are clear on the right plan, the right tools, and the right support, you're going to be unstoppable. So that's what I help my clients to do, and I strive to live that every day.
Awesome. Very last question. I want to thank you for being on the show, Dr. Noah. It's been an incredible honor to have you on. You've dropped a ton of wisdom in just 37 minutes. And so we're going to wrap it up right here. And it's this question. It's the foundation of our entire kind of show and thesis here, which is practicing a mindset of stewardship over ownership. So how do you best practice that? And what's another way that you say ultra healthy and super disciplined?
Well, I'm going to answer the second question. So I've never drunk alcohol, never smoked, don't do drugs, nothing. And what's great is my wife is the same. I found a teetotaler who doesn't drink, we don't smoke. And honestly, this is really key. We don't drink coffee. I honestly thought that was impossible. When I was looking for my dream woman, I said, she can't drink alcohol, no tattoos, no smoking, and no coffee. And I literally said, that's impossible. You can't find that in America. And not only did I find her, she's gorgeous, beautiful, smart, sexy, and everything else. So, see, you can do it. See, what did I just say? Clarity, baby, clarity.
You can. By the way, can I quickly say by same with my wife and I, we don't. At this point, we really never drink alcohol anymore. We rarely did anyways before that.
Yep.
We've never smoked, and we've never drinking coffee.
Yep.
And so, I guess I would say on an occasion we might have a glass of wine, but honestly, it's been about a year and a half now, and I don't miss any of it really,
Yeah.
honestly. Like I feel like I lose energy and it's not that appealing to me. And I was just kind of like, we went from like maybe once or twice a year to like, well, maybe we just go 0. Like, what's the point? We want to work out tomorrow morning, have some energy.
Exactly. Well, that's what I'm saying. It's nice. It's nice when you just don't need it anymore. And then to answer your stewardship question, that's how I've always felt about my work and what I do. I'm the steward of this work. That's exactly the word that I use. I'm not the owner of it. I mean, I do own it, but I'm also really the steward of it. In other words, my mission is to help 1 billion people to really learn to encompass and embody these power habits and install them so that we can all live better lives on this planet, that really we are the stewards of this planet.
Amazing. Dr. Noah St. John, thank you again for being on the show. People want to find you, the custom GPT. One last time, where can they find you?
NoahSt.John.com. Easy to remember. Just Google me, NoahSt.John.com. The custom GPT is free gift from Noah.com. By the way, PowerHabitsRealEstate.com. That's the Power Habits course for real estate professionals. PowerHabitsRealEstate.com.
Perfect. And also thank you all of our listeners for listening and watching another podcast episode, and also on the YouTube channel video, Built to Billions and Capital Gains Tax Solutions. As always, we are here on the journey with you to scale from millions to billions so we can give more all the way to help MVPs. My name is Brett Swarts. I appreciate everyone listening and watching out there. Please share this with somebody that could change their life right now. Thank you so much. We'll talk to you soon. Bye.
You have just listened to another information-packed episode of Capital Gains Tax Solutions with Brett Swarts. We hope you enjoyed today's show and found it helpful. Visit capitalgainstaxsolutions.com to access the show notes and to access more resources. Don't forget to leave a review and join us again next time.